We're halfway through July. Can you imagine that? It's this craziness. Who remember January? Any of you? I'm asking a question. Anybody remember January? It was way too cold. You're right. And now it's too hot, right? I remember January for a particular reason. Pastor Derek came to me in December and say, "Hey, Matt, you're now going to start preaching." I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's new." And so January 10th, I think, was the first time I preached in this church. And I was pretty pumped about it. I was like, man, this is going to be good. I've been praying God, asking God, to make a way to really let me minister, because I've been in the know that I have a call in my life for many years, and I've been with Brad on many trips, many mission trips, and one of the boxes I wanted was basically, I want to be able to equip with things that God's done in my life. I want to be able to equip people in my church. I've done that a lot with other people outside of the church. Usually take guys, out for coffee, and we just discuss things. And I know that God's done things in my life that will help other people. And that's what I usually do. I just share things that's going on in my life, and I hope that it, help people in changing things in your life to progress and grow in the Lord, right? So anyway, January showed up, and I preached, and I was like, man, this is going to be good. And then we started seeking, right? Anybody remember the start of the 120 day of seeking? That was a pretty good thing too. I was like, man, this is going to be good. I'm going to work, come home, take an extra hour or two, of praising and seeking every couple of days. I'll see what I can do, But my season of seeking went very differently than I expected. See, I was planning on, working 40 hours a week, doing my seeking at home in the evening or the morning. And it turns out that for 4 months, the only thing I did was quoting jobs. Didn't get a single one of them. And so I was home a lot. And if you're a self-employed person, you know what I'm talking about. When you hit what we call a dry season, or it's either famine or feast. That's a term we use. From January to probably the end-ish of March, I quoted 21 jobs and got none. And then I realized, this seeking time is going to be very different than I expected. Because I was like, God, what's next? Because I'm the kind of person that prepares ahead. So for many years, I started my business, about 15, 20 years ago now. And God always did this. He said, Matt, I want you to make sure that you're, put some months ahead in case of times where there's drought. There's time where work is not going to be as, prevalent. It's not going to come easily. So you want to make sure that you're prepared. And so in February, I started looking at the rainy fund that I had. And I was asking God, God, how long do you think this is going to last? I need you to, provide. I believe that you're my sole provider. You're the one that always bring me work. And so I started, having these thoughts. Maybe I need to just look for a regular job. Maybe it's just time for me to do maybe things differently. Maybe I quote weird, or maybe I quote too high, or maybe I don't put enough details in my quotes. So I started questioning, how I was doing things. And through a time of seeking on my own, this is why I heard God say, just keep doing what you're doing right now. I'll come through. And it's tough. It's a tough one when you're getting to a point where what's left in your bank account is not enough to pay for the bills. My wife works here at the daycare, and what she brings home is about half of what we need for, paying all the bills and going on with a month. So when there's no income coming into your life from what you usually get, it's a little tough. And I was like, God, what do I need to do? I love that song we sang this morning. trust in God. Because when times are tough, you need to be able to trust in God, right? And I asked myself a question in the last couple of weeks when I was preparing this, and I've heard a lot of preaching about faith, right? But I've never really heard about trust, and I was like, what's the difference? Because, I'm the kind of person that, you guys, English people use different words, and I'm like, trust and faith, they're pretty much similar to me, but this is what I found. Faith is the belief. Trust is the action words that go towards the belief. So we're gonna make a little bit of an example today. I'll ask my son to come up here. Anyone has ever heard of the trust fall experience? Anyone has ever heard of a trust fall that goes wrong? So hopefully today we're not having a trust fall that goes wrong. But I asked my son, you can look at them. And come back this way. I said, Josiah, no one is better than you to be my guinea pig because you know me. You have a relationship with me. And if we look at the definition of trust, right? This is the definition in the dictionary. It says, to trust someone mean that you believe that they are honest, sincere, and they won't deliberately hurt you. In regards to God is to believe that his word is true, his promises are sincere, and that none of his plan will never be in any way, shape, or form a way to harm you. There's a couple of scripture like Jeremiah 29:11 that explains that so well. For I know the thought that I have towards you, thought of peace, not of evil, to give you a future and a hope, right? And the other one is Number 23:19, it says that God is not a man that he should lie. So God, we know, is honest, he's sincere, his promises are true. So I figured, this is a good illustration because Josiah is my son, and we are the children of God. So the way that our relationship works is that Josiah knows me. He knows my heart. He knows I'm honest. He knows I'm sincere. And he knows that whatever I ask him to do will never put him in a place where he could get hurt. Except if he works with me and doesn't know how to use the tools, right? But let's just, leave that one alone. So Josiah, I'm going to take your glasses off. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. No, just close your eyes, right? And right now I'm going to ask you to spin around for a couple of times. Yeah. Okay, stop. Okay, I'll just place you right here. Okay, Josiah, you're gonna take a few steps backward for me, like slowly. Yeah, come on, you can do it. Don't worry, don't even try to see where. No, stop. Just one more time, and I'll just right. No, right there. Just go around the ledge there. Okay. So Josiah, do you trust me?
Yes, I do.
Why?
Because you're my father.
So because you know me, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So if I'm asking you to do something, you'll do it just because you know me?
If it doesn't hurt me, but yeah.
No, you'll do it because you trust me, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you trust that I won't ask you to do something that's going to hurt you, right?
Yes.
So if I ask you right now to let yourself fall backward, do you trust me that there's people behind you?
Yes, I do.
Oh man, you made a mistake there. Well, how about you go in at 3? 1, 2, 3. Thank you, boy. Thank you so much. Yeah. See, you can go and sit down. You want your glasses back. I guess, you should probably have those to see what I'm talking about and see the scriptures. So, this is the trust fall experience, right? Now, if I'm asking someone else, let's say I'm going to ask someone I don't know here. Who do I don't know? How about, Do you trust me enough to do this? See, it's a little different, right? It's like, no, I'll let her go. There's a difference between, trusting trust someone with your whole being because you know who they are, because you know that they're sincere, honest, right? And there's a difference between just being asked by a random person and having to trust them. So today, as you heard me for the last few minutes, we're going to talk about trust, about trusting in God, and why it's so important for us to learn how to create that relationship where trust is a big center point. See, trust is not a feeling. It's a commitment to believe God with everything. There's a couple of scripture that I want to share with you. First one is Proverbs 3:5, and the other one is Proverbs 3:6. The first one says, trust in God is to place your confidence only in Him. It says, trust in the Lord with all of your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. That's a big scripture, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. But the other one is, in all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make straight your path. So we need to learn how to trust Him instead of trusting this. And to trust Him that He's going to make a way in everything we're going through. See, God never said that we're not going to go through circumstances, situations, problems. He just wants us to trust Him through them. In fact, Jesus said this. He said to his disciple, he says that they would find troubles, right? But that he had overcame the world. And that they would too if they were just to trust in Him. So we are going to go through trouble. We're going to go through circumstances in our life. But God made a way for us to go through them. Trusting God is not something we do just in finances. Anyone, if you have anxiety, fears, different things in your life that you're having a very hard time with, if you learn how to trust God with that particular thing, God's going to change your world. So trusting God is not limited by a specific situation. It's not limited by our own environment. In fact, God wants to be able to get you to trust Him in everything, in every area of your life. Romans 8:28 says this. And we know that in all things work together for the good to those who love God, to those who are called according to His purpose. So if we love God and we know that we are called to His, about His purpose, everything will be ordered into place. We just need to trust Him with it. So don't allow your circumstances, that whatever is going on in your life right now, to override your trust in God. This morning is going to be very quick and simple. We're going to be done before noon for sure. But it's a simple message that changed my life. And I'll talk about, that situation I mentioned earlier. I'll explain what happened to me and why I wanted to share with you guys about trusting in God this morning. Because something amazing happened in our life in the last few months. And I believe that it can help people change whatever situation they're into right now if they just learn how to trust. 2 Corinthians 4:8-9 says, we are hard pressed on every side, yet not crushed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not forsaken. Struck down, but not destroyed. Did you realize that all these first part are very bad? But after that it says, but we're not like this. It doesn't say that, We are hard-pressed, but really we're not hard-pressed, sorry. We're just okay. No, you're going to go through stuff. But God makes a way for us to go through it. So let me give you 6 reasons to trust God, okay? First one, God promised to always provide for you. In fact, Philippians 4:19 says it, and my God shall supply all my need according to his riches and glory, right? God's proven himself through his grace and mercy to us. Yet, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. God does not lie. Numbers 23:19, right? God is not a man that he shall lie. God never changes. He's a consistent God. He is. Our circumstances will change, but God does not. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. God knows you better than you know yourself. In fact, Romans 8:27 says it. He knows us far better than we know ourselves. And God knows what's going on with you. Like, he knows what's going on, you're going through. Do you know why? He's been in the business of human since Adam and Eve. So there's nothing you can go through that he hasn't seen or hasn't worked out yet. We just need to trust that he can help us go through it, right? We all have insecurities, circumstances going on in our lives, issues going on in our life. We all need to eat, sleep, breathe. You know, we get cold, we get tired. We strongly desire like love. And one of the things that we all do, that he knows very much so, is we all sin. We all have stuff in our life that we are not too happy about or proud of. And yet, he knows all of it. And he's the one that can help you go through all of it. See, like, I think the biggest challenge that we're facing in our lives are not the circumstances that we're going through. You might say, wait, circumstances are a big deal. I'm like, yeah. But I think the biggest problem is not the circumstance. It's your limited understanding of what you're going through. Let me repeat that. The circumstances that you're going through are not your biggest challenge or your biggest problem. It's your limited understanding of what you're going through that's the biggest challenge. Because that causes you to question, have anxiety or fear. It brings you to that place where it's like, yeah, but I'm going through this and I don't know how I'm going to get out of it. I don't know how I'm going to get out of it. I'm limited in the understanding of what I'm going through. So I get all these feelings or these emotions coming in, and I don't know what to do about that. When my wife and I got married, I decided to become a self-employed contractor. I was installing flooring for a while and jumped to plumbing and jumped to framing and and that caused a lot of grief to my wife and a lot of anxiety to my wife. Because for her, she was looking at me as being the provider of our family. And at some point we had to have the chat and say, look, God is our provider and this is how we're going to do this. Because I wanted to be able to be a part of my kid's life. And the 9-to-5 kind of job was never really a good thing for me. Like, it's like I wanted to be my own boss, and when I had a boss, it wasn't really working out. So maybe I had to change a little bit for that. But so I made a decision, that I was going to start a business, and I would basically choose when I'm working, when I'm not, when I go to my kids' sport event, or award times, or basically just be a part of whatever I wanted. Again, because of what I did, I was able to go with Brad on a bunch of mission trips. Now, if I have a 9-to-5 job, I don't think that's happening. I want to be available for, just ministry, being able to take guys out, for coffee in the middle of a Wednesday, afternoon. if I wanted to. And I've done this multiple times because I realized one thing. You can either trust yourself in growing your business or allowing God to be in charge of it and trust him that he's going to bring things into your life. That's how I've learned how to become, to put my trust in God with that part of my life. See, like, the Bible talks about a lot of different things that don't make any sense at all. And when it came to my life, I knew that, believing in God or trusting God with my finances or my income was going to be difficult because if you think about it with your brain, it does not make sense at all. I have never advertised for my company, yet I've been in business since 2006. And you can ask my wife, we never really lacked. We always had enough, right? And I believe that's because God is true to his word. He will provide for my needs. He's going to supply all the needs that we have. Now, we didn't go on vacation every summer. We didn't, buy fancy cars or anything like that. Now, I got a nice truck, but it came with a big job too, right? But I believe that God was our sole provider since basically the beginning of when we started our business. Because I realized if he's not, then I'm only relying on myself. And I'm not big enough, to grow this thing the way that I believe God wants to grow it. Jesus told us a bunch of stuff that don't make sense. And, the Bible talks about so many different things that makes zero sense. Let me just give you a few examples. Jesus said to his disciple, love your enemies and pray for those that persecute you. If you're a normal person, that makes zero sense. If you're not a Christian, that makes zero sense. God instructs us to tithe, to bring our money into his storehouse, and he's going to open the windows of heaven and bless us. What are you talking about? Windows of heaven? In my brain, if I'm looking at this as a non-believer, this makes no sense. Jesus instructs us that if someone forces you to go 1 mile with them, you need to go 2. So if someone makes a request of you that makes no sense, you're supposed to give them more than what they want. I'll be honest with you, a lot of the time, I did jobs where people knew exactly what they were supposed to get, and last minute they added extra stuff. And to be honest, I had all rights to say no. But I chose to go that route. Say, okay, you know what? Sure. And it put us in hot waters. There's been times where it's like, God, I cannot do this. This does not make sense. I'll be in debt because of it. And yet I do it because God instructed us to do that. And we do it, and then we have to reorganize our budget and try to figure out how we're going to deal with this. And yet, we've never lacked. And there's been time where we're not talking just a few hundreds of dollars, a few $100. There's been a time where it was $40,000 that someone got me to spend towards a job and took off and never paid. And yet that amount is paid off today. It's been taken care of. And God is awesome because of it. I didn't know how I was going to do it, how to pay it, but God provided the work to pay for it. Isaiah 55:8 says, my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor my ways your ways, says the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, my ways are higher than your ways, and my thoughts are higher than yours. I realize that my little brain sometimes can't comprehend how to do things properly. But God has always a plan. I just need to seek him, listen to him, and trust him with it. I'm telling you that seeking time we had, 120 days, changed my whole perspective on trust. I had to readjust the way I think about trust. Let's say it this way. Let me just talk about Abraham for a second. Because, we know Abraham to be the father of faith, right? I'll say Abraham is not only the father of faith, he's also the father of trust. Because if Abraham had received, the word from God saying, hey, leave, your father's place and go to this country I'm going to show you. Abraham had to believe that God was going to do it, one. But the second thing he had to do, he had to start packing. And he had to start walking. And he had to keep trusting God that this, what I'm believing for, it's not just, something I'm believing for. I know that your promise is true and this is going to happen. There was a lot of trusting going on and a lot of faith going on. As I said earlier, I believe that faith is the belief and trust is the activation of your faith. Even in English, right? The word faith is a noun. It's not a verb. You can have faith in someone, but you can't faith someone. No, but that's your English language. And so you can trust in someone, and you can have trust. So you realize that trust is both, is a noun and a verb. There's a lot of more things you can do with trust. Faith is probably one of the main thing that we need in our life. But if we don't learn how to activate it by our actions, you need to learn how to do that. Trust is what activates your faith. If Josiah came on stage earlier, and I asked him, hey, close your eyes. And he's like, oh, no, I'm too scared. Does he trust me? If he closes his eyes, but he doesn't want to go back a few steps, does he trust me? Still believe in me, but there's no activation happening. And when I ask him to say, hey, 1, 2, 3, drop. Oh, I'm too scared. I'm so anxious right now. What caused him to not be fearful and anxious is the fact that he knows me and he trusts in me. God is calling us to trust in him to the point where all fear and anxiety of life can be tossed away because we know that he is our source. It's always a must to have your to put your trust in God. It's always a must. See, I believe that the small steps that we take in our lives are usually to prepare us for the bigger ones we're going to have to take later on. And that's why I believe it's very important for us to learn how to trust God with small things. Because when everything else falls apart, if you didn't trust him with small things, how can you trust him with the bigger stuff? See, Abraham had to learn how to trust God with, getting out of his dad's place, going for a walk, keep on trusting God that he's going to show him a place before he was able to take Isaac up the mountain and plan on basically sacrificing him. If I'm asking you today, would you be willing to give up on your kids? Or if God was to tell you, you need to take your son and drop him off there, nobody would do that. Abraham had to believe and trust God so much. Same goes with David. Do you think that David would have been able to trust God to help him kill Goliath if he didn't trust God with the lion and the bear? Think of it. A lion, I'm sure he killed other things before that because, even the lion, I'm like, oh man, that's a big animal. But he built on his trust with God. So we need to learn how to trust him in the small issues of our life so that we're ready to trust him in the bigger stuff, in the bigger issues of life. So if you trust him in the little things, you'll trust him with much. As I said earlier, we're going to go through life, and there's going to be circumstances. There's going to be situation. There's going to be stuff that's happening to us that we have no control over. And sometimes we have this question, why? Why does it happen to me? And the thing is, sometimes it takes time for us to figure out why this happened and how God grew us through that process. You know, when I was 27 years old, I got diagnosed with cancer in my throat. We had just had a brand new little born girl, and I'll be honest, it was probably the worst time of my life. And it took me probably 3-4 years to just realize that it could have been way worse, but God made a way. Trusted God in that time, and God, did something awesome. He made, he directed the hands of the surgeon in a way that was the easiest surgery she's ever had. Which, again, it's to me, it's still like I had a certain limited understanding of what was going on, and at the time I was like, I have faith, but God, what am I supposed to do? And God said, go for the surgery, trust me. And we did. And it was probably the easiest surgery she has ever had. She said she opened up like where the growth was, and it just spewed out itself. Like it came out by itself. God's awesome. And you have to start, there before you can be there. Does that make sense to you? Because if you try to be there when you're there, it's not going to work, but it's going to be very difficult too. You're going to put yourself in a position where you shouldn't be. So I said we're going to be done early, and I'm serious about this. Just want to tell you the end of my story from the beginning, because I told you, I quoted 21 job, and that was just before the end of February, mid-March-ish. Quoted 21 jobs, and I was seriously asking God, you got to do something. And God said, just to keep on seeking, and he was going to provide, he was going to do something. And so I did. And I'll be honest, it's been probably the one time in my whole life that I ever seek that much, really purposefully, because I had nothing else to do. I took the time every day, went to God, and not brought him my problems, because he knows my problems. I started telling him, God, I trust you. I believe that you are making a way where I don't see a way right now. In the analogy we did earlier with Josiah here, did you see that sometime you're looking this way and you don't know what's going on here? And that sometimes it's like that with God. You don't see what's going on, but there's something happening there, and God is the one making it happen. Josiah knew there was going to be people, but he didn't see them showing up in their spot. He knew God was going to do something, or he knew that his dad had planned this out, but he had no clue it was happening because he was looking, first of all, in the wrong direction, and his eyes were closed. God's always at work. He's always at work. Even when we don't see him doing things, he is. So, end of March happened, And I'll be honest, at that time, we desperately need God to do something. My rainy fund is basically, we're about 3-4 weeks away from not buying groceries next week, kind of thing. And I told Krista, I said, I don't know what to tell you, babe, but I still believe God's going to provide for us. Like, this is the only thing I can do. Like, I do everything I'm supposed to. I keep on looking for other work and everything, and I'm like, but I got a phone call from an unknown number on my phone. I answered the call, and the guy says, hey, my name is so-and-so, and you were referred by this gentleman, and we'd like to meet with you. We have a small project that we would like you to take over, or at least look, and give us a quote. So, okay. So the guy I'd worked with many times before, so I said, okay, that's a good reference, so at least, So I go and meet with the customer, and it's a bigger building, and he's bringing me upstairs, and he's like, okay, so we'd like to add some windows here, and we'd like to change the bathroom and do this and that. I'm like, okay, sounds good. So he's like, well, I guess maybe I should show you a few other things we want to do. I'm like, okay. So we want to put an office here, and we want to do a hallway there, and we want to change this window and that window too. So now we're talking 7-8 windows now. And I'm like going downstairs, and we want to change this whole entrance. And then, we want to renovate these bathrooms right here too. And he goes to another room, and he's like, we want to insulate this whole ceiling, and we want to do this. And I'm just like, you call me for a small project? I was expecting like something, like in the $10,000-$20,000 worth of like materials and labor. Like, turns out to be way more than that. So I quoted the whole thing, sent it to the guy, and I got a phone call about 2-3 days later, and he's like, hey, can we meet with you? Me and my other 2 partners would like to just kind of talk with you and just go over your quote, and I'm like, okay. So I go and meet with these guys, and they're like, well, we looked at the quote, and we love everything you put on there, and the only problem is the price. And that's usually not a good sign. If you're a guy like me, like when people say the price is the issue, you're like, how much? I'm sure Tyrone knows about this. It's always like, okay, so what do you want? Like, how much do you want me to take off the top there? And he replied, no, it's not that we want you to take stuff off. It's just we want you to charge us 3 times what you charged. I said, wait a second. What do you mean? He's like, well, the amount you charge is perfect. Like, it looks awesome. But we want to make sure we are a blessing to you. So how about you triple that number? And that's what you're going to charge us. I'll be honest with you, like, I've never had a customer like this, but if there's more out there, if you're listening today, I'm open for offers. No problem. I'll take them. I'll take those jobs. No, but I mean, that's God. Almost 4 months of like seeking and looking and trying, and nothing's happening. God just, poof, here you go. Now you're set for the rest of the year. So now it opens a door for me to seek Him more, right? I can go on my bike trip with Jim Christian tomorrow because God provided. God's just awesome. God is faithful. And it's always a must to give Him your trust. If you need to learn one thing today, it's that you can't go wrong by giving God your trust, by trusting in Him. We sang that song this morning, and I believe that the words of that song are so true. When you seek Him, He hears you and He answers. Just don't quit. Just don't quit. The problem often is because you quit. Because you don't see something happening like in the timeline you have. I want to pray for some of you this morning. I really believe that God did this whole thing in my life, in our lives. And God is not I think the word is respecter of person, right? God won't do it because it's me. God does that with anyone, every single person that wants something like that to happen in their life. God can do it. So if you have issues with trusting God, or anxiety, fear, things that's going on in your life that you don't know how to handle, maybe just come forward and we'll pray for God to just broaden your understanding of whatever you're going through, so that you can put your trust in Him. Because when you learn how to put your trust in Him, God's going to take you places where you can't go on your own. And He's going to take you places where He wants you to be.